Has the friendship you believed in all these years finally reached its breaking point? When Kim Taehyung, better known as V of BTS, stepped into the golden haze of Paris Fashion Week with Park Bo-gum by his side, no one could have predicted the avalanche of questions that would follow. They arrived together, framed by the glittering Paletta Tokyo and the towering banners of Celine, their smiles wide but unreadable. For the cameras, it was a perfect tableau. Two of Korea's most admired stars, conquering Europe's most exclusive fashion stage with a single shared stride. But behind that dazzling entrance, fans saw something more unsettling. They saw the absence of one person whose name has been linked to Taehyung's for over a decade, whose presence in every backstage moment, in every shared hotel hallway, in every unguarded laugh had come to feel inevitable. Where was Jungkook? And perhaps more importantly, why was Park Bo-gum there instead? It didn't take long for the theories to ignite, spreading across Twitter, TikTok, and Korean fan communities with the unstoppable velocity of a scandal everyone secretly feared. Some called it a betrayal, others called it strategy, but the most persistent and most painful question was also the simplest. Has Team decided to use Park Bo-gum to sever the bond with Jungkook once and for all? In the hours since the footage was released, this single possibility has metastasized into a narrative that no publicist can contain. Because for many fans, the idea that Taehyung might deliberately showcase a new alliance isn't just a shift in friendships. It feels like an admission that the image of unity BTS built over the years was more fragile than anyone dared to imagine. As the cameras trailed Taehyung and Park Bo-gum through the corridors of the Celine showroom, their coordinated outfits and relaxed conversation seemed almost too effortless. Every glance and every nod was dissected in real time. Was Taehyung sending a message? Was this polished performance in front of Europe's most influential fashion press a carefully staged rebuke to the person who wasn't there? Even the smallest gestures were replayed in slow motion, set to dramatic soundtracks in fan edits that racked up millions of views within hours. When Taehyung turned to Bo-gum and laughed, an easy, unguarded laugh, some viewers felt their hearts twist in recognition of a truth they'd been denying, that closeness can slip away without warning, that the people we expect to stand beside us forever can be replaced in the span of a single season, and so the questions only grew sharper. Did Jungkook refuse to come to Paris because he knew what awaited him there? Did Taehyung orchestrate this moment to reclaim his independence, to shed the image of a boy tethered to a friendship that no longer served him? Or was it simply easier to arrive with someone whose own stardom could help deflect the inevitable scrutiny? No official statement has offered clarity. Neither Taehyung's representatives nor Celine have commented on why Jungkook was absent from the guest list. In that silence, speculation has metastasized into certainty for many. Because when no one tells you the truth, your imagination will always fill the void with the thing you fear most. And what fans fear is simple, that the myth of Taehyung, the unbreakable bond, the unspoken trust, the decades of shared history, was never as real as they believed. It is that fear that has turned what should have been a celebration of Taehyung's triumphant return to the public eye after military service into a battlefield of clashing narratives. Some have accused him of manipulating the moment for maximum effect, knowing that Park Bo-gum's presence would ignite the headlines and set the internet ablaze. Others insist that this is nothing more than projection, that Taehyung's friendships are allowed to evolve, that no one owes the public proof of private loyalties. But no matter how many rational voices try to temper the hysteria, the footage tells its own story, one that is impossible to unsee. Because it wasn't just the way Taehyung and Park Bo-gum walked side by side under the Parisian street lamps. It was the way they seemed to share a secret no one else could access, the way they didn't flinch at the barrage of questions about Jungkook, the way they smiled through every shouted demand to explain where the youngest member of BTS had disappeared. Was it indifference? Was it defiance? Or was it simply fatigue? An acknowledgement that no answer would ever satisfy a fandom determined to see betrayal in every shadow. For those who have followed Taehyung's career since the earliest days, the scene felt almost like a rupture with the past. Because once, not so long ago, it would have been unthinkable to see him standing in such a public spotlight without Jungkook a breath away, offering the kind of silent support that no stylist or brand partnership can replace. Once, it was always Taehyung and Jungkook, a dual force of charisma and mischief that made them the darlings of fans and the envy of every PR manager in the industry. Now, in the cold clarity of Parisian night, that duo feels more like a memory than a reality, and so the questions refuse to die. Is Taehyung using Park Bo-gum to distance himself from the one person who defined his most formative years? If so, what does that say about the pressures that even the closest friendships cannot survive? About the cost of fame that no amount of success can mitigate? About the reality that sometimes, even the most carefully curated bonds are not strong enough to withstand the need for reinvention, because no matter how you spin the story, the images remain. Taehyung alone on the Palais steps, Park Bo-gum at his side, no trace of Jungkook in the gilded corridors where history was being written in real time. And perhaps that is why this moment feels so raw, so loaded with implication. It is not just about whether Taehyung has moved on. It is about whether the rest of us are ready to accept that sometimes the fairy tale ends without a public announcement. Sometimes it just ends with a different face standing in the place you expected to see someone else. Has Taehyung's need to evolve become more important than preserving the illusion of unity? Or has the illusion always been more comforting than true? The days that follow offer no relief. Taehyung continues to make appearances in Paris, each event a new opportunity for fans to search the crowds for Jungkook's unmistakable silhouette. Each time the answer is the same. He isn't there. Each time, the realization cuts deeper. This is the moment when fandom turns into something more dangerous than devotion, when love becomes entitlement, when curiosity becomes surveillance, when disappointment becomes resentment. Because the truth is, many fans don't just want to see Taehyung succeed. They want to see him succeed in a way that proves nothing has changed, that the friendships they invested in remain exactly as they imagined. And when reality refuses to comply, outrage becomes the only salve for the wound. I ask that fair to Taehyung. To Jungkook? To Park Bo-gum? No, but it is inevitable. In the end, perhaps that is the real lesson of Paris Fashion Week, that the people we love most can never remain frozen in the versions we prefer. That the friendships we believe in can shift and change and fade without anyone's permission. And that even if Taehyung did use this moment to send a message to Jungkook, it is a message none of us are entitled to decode. And so, the cameras will keep rolling. The theories will keep multiplying. The outrage will keep simmering. But behind all the noise, one question remains louder than the rest. Has Taehyung finally chosen to walk away? And if so, what does that mean for the story we've all been telling ourselves? Only time, and perhaps the silence between them, will tell. Fans outraged. Is Taehyung using Park Bo-gum to distance himself from Jungkook? When you press play on that now infamous clip, Taehyung stepping into the Palais de Tokyo, Park Bo-gum close beside him, you'll notice something. That no translation, no rational explanation, no optimistic theory can erase. IT is not the polished choreography of a brand appearance. It is not the glitter of luxury invitations or the shine of cameras flashing in perfect rhythm. It is something far simpler, something that every fan feels before they can even name it, the unmistakable sense of finality. Because this was never supposed to be the story. For years, Taehyung and Jungkook's bond has been the heartbeat of BTS's mythology. It was never only about the music. It was never just about the record shattered, the stadium sold out, the billions of streams. It was about the way they seemed to look at each other when no one else was watching, the quiet affection that felt so genuine, so incorruptible that even the most cynical observers were forced to believe in it. But now, that belief is under siege, and whether or not it's fair, whether or not it's any of our business, the reality is clear. That single evening in Paris has become a referendum on everything fans once thought unbreakable. Some will insist this is an overreaction. They will say that no amount of speculation can erase the decade of memories Taehyung and Jungkook built together. They will point to interviews where Taehyung called Jungkook his little brother, to moments when Jungkook praised Taehyung's resilience, to the countless clips of them leaning on each other in airports and green rooms and backstage corridors. But memories have a way of dissolving when confronted by images that contradict the story, because in the footage of Paris Fashion Week, What you see is not two friends whose bond is unshakable. You see two different narratives. Taehyung carving out a new identity alongside Park Bo-gum, and the absence of Jungkook rendered so conspicuous it feels like an accusation. This is the detail that fans cannot stop obsessing over. The tiny fracture in Taehyung's expression as he steps onto the carpet alone. Does he look relieved? Does he look burdened? Or does he look like someone who has finally accepted that not every story is meant to last forever? As the week unfolds, the headlines only grow more provocative. Taehyung and Park Bo-gum, the new power duo? Jungkook missing again. Is BTS fracturing before our eyes? Inside the rift that no one wants to admit. For casual observers, these are just gossip items, sensational noise designed to stoke engagement and drive ad revenue. But for the millions who have built their identities around BTS's shared story, these headlines feel like proof that the walls are finally crumbling, and so the questions only grow sharper. Was this really just about fashion? Or was it about something deeper? Something that began long before Taehyung slipped into that Celine suit and posed for the Parisian cameras? Some point to the inevitable pressures that come with fame. The contracts, the expectations, the relentless need to perform, not only for audiences but for each other. Others insist that the split began during military service, when the members were forced to confront what life looks like without the constant presence of 6 other people to share the weight. Still others believe that this is not the end, only a brief intermission, a necessary pause before they find their way back to each other again. But the fact remains, no matter how many hopeful theories circulate, no matter how many fans beg for clarity, neither Taehyung nor Jungkook has said a single word. Their silence is deafening. And in that silence, every tiny moment becomes a symbol. Take the footage of Taehyung stepping out of his car that night. For the briefest instant, he pauses to look over his shoulder, perhaps searching the shadows for someone who never materializes. Some fans see in that glance the confirmation of everything they fear. That Taehyung wished Jungkook was there, that he felt the absence as acutely as the fans did. Others insist that this is nothing more than projection, that no one can possibly decode what a single moment means without context. But that is the cruel paradox of fandom. The more you care, the less objective you can ever be. Because when you have spent years memorizing someone's expressions, you convince yourself you can read their mind. When you have replayed every moment of affection thousands of times, you start to believe those moments belong to you, that you have the right to demand more of them, and so the cycle continues. Speculation breeds outrage. Outrage breeds more speculation. Speculation becomes fact in the echo chamber of social media. And the days following the dinner, the edits began to appear. Dozens of fan-made videos juxtaposing Taehyung and Jungkook's most intimate memories with the stark footage of Taehyung standing beside Park Bo-gum. The captions are painful to read. How did we get here? What happened to the two boys who promised never to change? Was it always destined to end this way? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, did we ever really know them? Because that is the truth no one wants to admit for all the hours fans have spent watching, studying, decoding. The reality is simple. The people on those stages are human beings. They are allowed to change. They are allowed to grow apart. They are allowed to decide that the story everyone else wants them to keep living no longer fits the people they have become. But understanding that does not make it any easier to accept. Especially when you look at the footage from Paris and see the subtle choreography of two men who know exactly what story they are about to unleash. Taehyung, walking just a half step ahead. Park Bo-gum, close enough to make the cameras click but never quite touching, and no sign of Jungkook anywhere in the frame. For those who have followed BTS from the beginning, the message feels impossible to ignore. This is a new chapter, and whether fans are ready or not, the old one may be closing for good. Is that a betrayal? Or is it simply the inevitable evolution of people who have spent too many years carrying the burden of other people's expectations? These are the questions no statement can ever fully answer, because no amount of PR spin can change the footage, the headlines, the simple fact that sometimes even the greatest friendships must yield to the reality that nothing stays the same forever. And so the fandom keeps watching, keeps hoping, keeps searching for a sign that this is just a temporary fracture rather than a final break. But the truth is, no one can promise them that. not even the people at the center of it all.